Hello, welcome back. So this is going to be the first of a handful of campaign prep videos that I'm going to put out over the next couple of months while we are on break from releasing full-fledged episodes in advance of the launch of our new campaign. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the setting of the campaign, and I'm going to show you an interesting tool that I think is a really good way to sort of pitch your campaign's vibes, for lack of a better term, to your players in order to help them create characters and have goals and just really for everyone to be on the same page in terms of what the story is going to be about. Okay. So, why is this important? I'll get to that in a second. Why is this important? Okay. So, with Kyber Shards, which we just finished, my pitch to the players was done in just a few words. I essentially said I'd like to do a superhero type of game with the same kind of vibes as the X-Men Saturday morning cartoon, the animated series X-Men. And that got a lot of people the basic idea. They knew they were creating characters with special abilities, and that was pretty straightforward. But what exactly did I mean by vibes from X-Men? Because different episodes of the X-Men Saturday morning cartoon had very different vibes. And are we talking about Jubilee? Are we talking about Gambit? Are we talking about much more serious characters like Wolverine? So the general pitch didn't necessarily convey to everyone the same idea of what it meant. And that didn't really damage our campaign in any ways. But as I mentioned in the last KSA, there were some places where I really thought, how have we gotten so far away from the vibes I intended? But the players didn't feel that way. They really thought this is very X-Men. And they were right. It was just X-Men in a different way than what I had in mind in certain spots. So being on the same page is going to prevent risk of awkward moments. But the main thing it's going to help with is creating characters. It's so easy for players to show up with very different ideas of the kind of character they want to play, and that character might not fit the tone of campaign that you are after. Some players really, really like and are good at silly character ideas, gimmicky character ideas. And there are campaigns where that is great. I have never run a just genuinely let's be goofballs campaign, but it can be very fun. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of campaign. But it's important that everyone knows whether we're doing that or not. So, what I've got here is a tool for pitching your campaign in a way that hopefully makes the tone of your campaign very clear and allows you to give the characters a bit of information about the kinds of things you'll be dealing with in this campaign. Okay. So, without further ado, let's take a look. So, as you can see, our new campaign is called Blades and Banners. And as several of you have guessed from the trailer that we dropped, it is set in the Lazar Principalities on the far eastern edge of Corvair in the Eberron campaign setting. I created this in Canva. It's really easy to do. The art is mostly the result of just Google image searches or some Midjourney prompts. I don't usually use Midjourney prompts for things that I'm going to actually publish on our channel for episodes because you have a lot of blurry lines there. But for just communicating vibes to my players, I think it's a fine tool. So what I wanted them to see is I want it to see that we're going for obviously a pirate aesthetic, but I don't want it to just be Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates are a worldwide concept, and of course, we're playing in a fantasy setting, so our pirates can be a mix of things. Another reason for that is that I want them to see that the Lazar Principality is a blend of cultures. It's a place where people go to lose themselves on the edge of civilization. It's also a meeting place of cultures because this is where long ago humans first arrived from Sarlona into the continent of Corvair, which was already populated with many other species. And so this is the place where those cultures first met. And so there would still be strong Sarlonan concepts of aesthetics and culture here. There are a lot of elves who left Arenal and came to the Lazar principalities. And so there's a lot of elven influence here. And then, of course, the Lazar principalities are on the edge of a large human dominated culture in Corvair. And so there's that cultural element as well. And finally, because you have this everywhere in Corvair, the old Dakani Empire ruled by hobgoblins are going to have an influence. And in addition, there's all these different principalities with different groups. And so you're going to have this sort of mixing pot of cultural ideas and iconography. And so I wanted to kind of give some different kinds of cultural aesthetics into this as much as possible and let my players see that that's what I'm going for. So if they don't want to build a Pirates of the Caribbean looking pirate, they don't have to. They can absolutely design their pirate character to be whatever cultural style that they want to play with from Eberron, or taking whatever cultural inspirations they want from the world, and not to feel limited. I want them to feel limited to that Caribbean pirate aesthetic, to that Caribbean pirate concept when they're designing their characters. But I do want to communicate that this is a game about pirates. So, all right. So a basic mood board, essentially, what we're looking at here. Just a quick image to give a feel for the idea of the campaign. So then we move on, and this next page is all about film and media that are in my head when I think of this concept. Doesn't necessarily mean this is the thing that is going to form the basis of any campaign or anything like that, but in the same way that I referenced the X-Men animated series for Kyber Shards, I want them to see some of the things that I picture here. So the Lazar Principalities is really cool as a setting because on the one hand, it is this piratey space. So swashbuckling action, Pirates of the Caribbean's here, the Musketeer, which was a not very successful interpretation of the Three Musketeers, but it has some of the wildest sword fighting choreography that you will see in a film. It's done by the same choreographer as did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragons. So you've got that sort of wuxia idea mixed with sabers and rapiers and fencing and that kind of thing, and I love it. It's great. You got Firefly there, which is ultimately a pirate western in a lot of ways, and Black Sails. So you got some just straightforward pirate ideas, but Lazar Principalities isn't just pirates. The pirates are princes. They rule over islands and territories, not just as turf, like a crime organization or a gang or something like that. They are ruling over it as actual rulers. And so there's an element of this that's also intrigue among powerful, noble factions, like you would find in Dune or in Shogun. So I want that to be present as well. I want them to know, yes, swashbuckling adventure on the high seas is going to be at the core of this game, but also factional political intrigue is going to be part of this game. So if you want to build a character who's going to just lean into swashbuckling on a ship, good. But if you want to build a character who's going to be really good in social situations and negotiations and intrigue, that will also fit here. Like that absolutely works. And then we have the Seven Samurai, because I think the Seven Samurai should be on everybody's mood board for a D&D campaign, because it really is just a D&D adventure. Like that film, that story is so iconically a D&D adventure. You've got a large but not unreasonable size D&D adventuring party of seven players. I've run for 7 players. It's hard and it's messy, but you can do it. I've run for 7 players. They are of different types, with different skill sets, and they are protecting villagers from bad guys. What could be more D&D? It's classic D&D sort of adventure. So I want them to see, these are some of the films, these are some of the television that's in my head when I am running the game, so that they're not going to be surprised. Uh, they're not going to get in here and think, all right, we're just going to be free agent pirates roaming around, swashbuckling over the sea, and then I introduce political factions and things like that. And whoa, 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 where is there's peanut butter in my chocolate? I know there is, because Reese's is the best candy. So want them to see that, want them to get a clear idea of what I'm after, and also of some of the aesthetics that I have in my head that I'm going to be playing with. Doesn't mean they have to play with the same things in their character descriptions, but I want them to know what I'm going to be, how I'm going to be describing things and how I'm thinking about things, so that if they want to match that, they can. They don't have to, but they can. Our next is all about ships, because this is an island campaign. The Lazar Principalities is a good stretch of coastland, but it's also a whole bunch of islands. And I've said we're doing high seas adventure. That means we're going to be on a ship. Okay, we're not going to be on land. We're not going to be. If you build a ranger and you make your favored terrain desert, this is not that game. Um, if you are a ranger and you've always wanted to have an aquatic animal companion, guess what? It's finally here. The day has finally come where that can make sense. It means we're going to have a ship. We're going to need to work as a group to design your ship and figure out where your ship came from and design a pirate principality and all of these things. And I've got some work already started on that process, and we'll talk more about that in a future campaign prep video. But for now, I need them to know we're going to be on ships. And I need them to know, in case they're not familiar with Eberron, my players know Eberron. They've played in Kyber Shards, or they watched Kyber Shards, in Mia's case, so they're aware of Eberron. But I need them to know, in Eberron, a ship is not just a ship. Okay, a ship is more than a ship. A ship is enchanted in a bunch of different ways. Maybe our ship is powered by ghosts, or elementals. Maybe our ship is enchanted with low level, like just prestidigitation magic, and it scrubs its own decks. You don't have to have a crew to swab the deck. The deck swabs itself. Why wouldn't it? It means that our armament, whether it's cannons, I know not everyone is down for gunpowder in Eberron, and I haven't decided, honestly, whether we're going to have gunpowder in this game. But whether it's cannons or ballista or siege staffs or whatever, our weapons on these ships are not just going to be mundane weapons. This is going to be arcane cannons, with shot that is superheated through the heat metal spell, or which explodes and sets off a fireball, or things like that. This is going to be wild ships. It's not just going to be anything. And their ship is going to get to be personalized. They're going to get to personalize your ship. They're going to get to decide what kind of enchantments exist on it, and ideally upgrade their ship. More on ship rules later, because I'm working on that as well. And then for our last slide, I've got some factions that I have worked up as factions that I'm interested in. The Lazar Principalities has a bunch of factions in it. There's a lot of different principalities, and they're not all on here. I've said I'm saying by putting these here, I'm not saying these are the only ones, and I'm not saying we won't deal with the other ones, and the player can't have ties to other ones, but I'm saying these are the ones that have already jumped out in my head. I already have thoughts as to the role these factions will play in the game. So I want them front and center in the players' minds before the players create characters, because I want them to be thinking, what is my character's relationship to the Cloud Reavers or the Wind Whisperers or the Blood Sails? I want them to think, does my character have any connection to the Shadow Schism and House Thorani? Did my character serve in the navy of the Lazar Principalities during the last war, when they acted as mercenaries in a lot of circumstances? What does my character think of High Prince Ryger and his plan to basically take the principalities legitimate, and make them into a nation instead of a confederacy of pirate captains? Have I ever had a run-in with the Cloud Reavers? Do I agree with the Cloud Reavers that this is not supposed to be a traditional nation? We're supposed to be in sort of anarchist pirate haven. What do I know about the Blood Sails and their mysterious ways? There are a bunch of different factions, And players who do some research into the Lazar principalities are welcome to grab on other factions. But these are the ones that have already jumped out to my head, and I want them to think about, what does my character know about this faction? And if anything, what is my character's connection to this faction? And I haven't given a huge rundown of these factions because I don't need to right now. That can come later. I want my characters to get the feel of these factions. So Blood Sales are led by a guy named Shine Tassil. They're elf exiles from Arenal. They're necromancers. They have ghost ships and zombie sharks. You got the feel. You get the idea. Prince Ryger heads the Sea Dragons. He's leading the leading principality, the largest fleet. The Wind Whisperers are led by Colton Brightwind. They're vigilantes. They're house renegades, and they have an elemental airship. Greytide is led by Kel Silverhand. I added a surname to him, to them. To Kel Silverhand. They're mysterious. They live on the fringe. They're changelings. Like, I just want them to see pictures. I want them to have a vibe in their head for each of the different factions that I have already had jump out to me. And as they're interested in different factions, we can flesh them out. They don't need to worry about that right now. I just want them to have a picture of the character that these different factions are. So that is sort of my start. So to come back to this, that's sort of my start in terms of what I'm talking about with this idea of a mood board or a pitch board for your campaign. It's super easy to create. It's just, that's just a PowerPoint presentation with a bunch of images copied and pasted from a Google image search or Midjourney. So it's really easy to create, really easy to send out to your players ahead of a session 0 to say, here's kind of what I'm thinking, so that they can start to get ideas flowing around in their heads, and you can start to spark concepts and connections for their characters. I really like emergent storytelling, so I want my players to feel like they can grab and get their hooks in and help to define what factions are. And I want my players to feel just free to do that. So I want to know what they're into, and I want them to be able to help shape where that's going to go. I'm also going to be asking them to create goals. And so having an idea of what factions I'm going to make prominent, and me knowing what the goals of those factions are, and giving the players at least what the public goals of those factions are, will also help them to know which faction aligns with what my character wants. And that can be of great help. In our campaign, the players are going to be from a principality, and so they'll be defining that principality and their own faction, although they won't start as leading it. And one of the first things I'm going to ask my players is, what's your goal as a group? Do you want to support? Are you loyalists who want to support and help your principality rise to prominence as time goes on? Or are you just looking for an opportunity to strike out on your own, set yourself up as your own power, as your own principality? So what are they after is going to be relevant there, and that will help me later on. So there's some conversations I got to have with the players about these different things. But that's my first glimpse for them of what the campaign will be like, so that they can start thinking about characters. And that way, when we arrive at session 0, there's no chance that somebody brings out a character that makes absolutely no sense, or, well, maybe not no chance, but, very little chance, brings out a character concept that makes absolutely no sense in the setting. So that is a brief introduction to our setting and my just first ever use of a pitch board for my players. And I hope that was interesting. Hopefully, if you're starting a campaign, maybe you'll think about using this. What have you used to pitch your campaign? Do you wait until session 0 and pitch it verbally? That's what I've always done in the past. Do you send something out ahead of time? Let me know in the comments. I'm really interested in how other GMs kind of set themselves up for success in their games, because I'm trying to do a good job of setting myself up for an easy time and then some success in our upcoming campaign, Blades and Banners, hopefully releasing or beginning to release sometime in November, both here and over on Spotify and on YouTube Music. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so in the comments below or at any of the links that you'll find down here. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.